There are too many great villains out there with some equally great origin stories, but some of those stories are also incredibly nuts. I'm Adam Andrews, and today on Top 10 Nerd, we're talking about part 2 of the top 10 villain origin stories we can't believe happened. Make sure to check out part 1 of the list, and let's dive in. Coming in at number 10 today is Galactus. Being one of the constants in Marvel Comics since 1965, Galactus is a big name in comic books, and yet I feel like there's a good chunk of people who may not know his origins. Galactus was known originally as the space explorer Galen from a planet called Ta. The civilization he belongs to was the most advanced of any of the known universes at that time, and Galen was a genetically engineered child of one of Ta's greatest scientists. But Galen and his society existed in the previous iteration of the Marvel multiverse, the Sixth Cosmos. Essentially, in Marvel, the universe starts off as a cosmic egg, or a sphere of disorganized, dense, compact matter. This sphere undergoes a big bang that hurls the matter outwards, where it eventually condenses into stars, planets, moons, and all that good stuff. It all expands in size for billions of years, and then it begins to go in reverse, undergoing a quote crunch over the next billions of years, all heading toward a central point in the universe where it all restarts again. That, or it was a giant entity known as the Black Winter. Either way, Galen and the surviving people of Ta attempted to face the end of the universe by leaving their planet on a ship. Sadly, the cataclysm caught up with the ship and everyone passed except for Galen, who was approached by the sentients of the universe, who merged his power with Galen, allowing him to survive as Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds, in the next cosmos. This one. Number 9. Parasite, Joshua Michael Allen. When talking about the origin story of the villain Parasite, there are a few different stories we can tell, but they're all nuts. The most current version of Parasite is a guy who used to go by the name Joshua Michael Allen. Josh was originally a bike courier from Metropolis, but his life changed when he very randomly came face to face with a massive green booger-looking monster. He was having a rough time, and so he kinda snapped, attacking the monster and getting a massive electric shock. He then lost consciousness. When he came to, he was diagnosed as suffering from alien flu. He also lost his job and got dumped by his GF in the same stroke, so that's pretty sad. It was then that he was called into Star Labs to be checked for the virus. All of a sudden, a random explosion at the lab took out everyone nearby and transformed Joshua into a purple grotesque monster called Parasite. As Parasite, he uncontrollably, and suffering from a crazy level of hunger, drained the energy of people around him, leaving them as husks. However, the Man of Steel came to intervene, and when Parasite touched Superman, he gained way more energy than he had from anyone before. From that point forward, leeching metahuman powers became his new obsession. Number 8. Solomon Grundy. Cyrus Gold lived a pretty miserable life. His father, Gold Sr., had moved to Gotham City to gain fame and fortune, and failed miserably. The elder Gold began to use his family as a way to vent off the hate he felt towards his superiors. For years, the young Cyrus Gold was mistreated, coming to a head when his mother packed her belongings, kissed him goodbye, and abandoned him alone with his horrible father. Not too much later, Cyrus snuck down to the docks to watch his father work when a crate fell on top of Cyrus Gold's father, taking him out of the picture instantly. Now, Cyrus Gold was all alone. Forced to survive on nothing, he swore to himself to make his own riches and power. And miraculously, a mysterious stranger offered Cyrus the deal of a lifetime. He could become rich and powerful if he only served the stranger until the day he died. Cyrus Gold shook the stranger's hand, and what do you know? He soon became wealthy and powerful, but by ways not very honest. He took people's lives, including his mother and various people who had bullied him in the past. He stole, and he became a horrible mobster, notorious for dumping the bodies of his victims in the waters of Slaughter Swamp. During this period, Cyrus somehow got married and had a little boy and a little girl as well. Initially, they were a happy family, but Cyrus became a worse and worse husband until, in a fit of rage, Cyrus took his wife's life. A mob formed and chased him into the swamps. Now, Cyrus didn't want to go by the mob's hands, and subsequently, he stuck himself through the heart, sinking into the cursed waters of Slaughter Swamp. Now, the swamp, filled with unknown acids and chemicals, bonded to the preserving corpse of Cyrus Gold, fusing his body through time with wood, stone, and pretty much anything else that was unlucky enough to fall into the swamp. 50 years later, after his passing, something happened. In the dead of night, a moaning was heard. The waters rippled and parted as a hideously decayed white hand reached out. That night, from the remains of a selfish and evil man, came a hulking avatar of the Grey known only as Solomon Grundy, naming himself after a famous poem. That was a long one, I'm sorry. Number 7. Killer Croc. As with most DC characters, Killer Croc, aka Waylon Jones, has two main origin stories, the pre- and post-Flashpoint origins, with some minor differences. Born in a slum in Tampa, Florida, Waylon was born with a congenital medical condition that caused him to have scaly, thick skin and reptilian features, which led to the Croc part of his name. This is true in both origins, although post-Flashpoint this condition was given a bit more depth as Waylon tried to scrub away the scales for years. Now, with his mother passing away from his birth and his father abandoning the little Croc, Waylon was raised by his aunt, but she had a bit of a problem with the drinky. As a teenager, Croc had no friends and was bullied for his medical condition, as is usually the case in a villain origin story. So, instead, Waylon grew up and found himself literally wrestling alligators as part of carnivals. Post-Flashpoint, this was the Gotham Circus, where he even came into contact with the Flying Graysons. This was where he earned the name Killer Croc, but carnivals aren't exactly swimming in the cash, and post-Flashpoint his boss was keeping his money, prompting Croc to bite off his arm. Croc soon realized that there was more money to be made in crime, so he set out to become Gotham's most powerful crime lord, taking out other rising criminals, gathering up some henchmen, and seizing control of the Tobacconists Club and/or the Gotham City sewers, bringing him into conflict with the Batman. Number 6. Professor Zoom. Hunter Zolomon was already starting off life with a bit of a disadvantage, and that's because his dad was a notorious killer who lost his life to the police after taking the life of Hunter's mother. So yeah, it was pretty bad. Trying to move on with his life though, Hunter became obsessed with understanding the criminal mind, studying psychology and criminology in college, and eventually joining the FBI alongside his girlfriend, whom he later married. Nice. Unfortunately though, during one case, Hunter made a bad call regarding a criminal they were after, and it resulted in Ashley's father losing his life. Hunter actually was correct, but the whole thing was orchestrated by Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne. Ashley left Hunter, and the FBI terminated his employment, leaving Hunter with a damaged knee due to the case and a cane for walking. After getting a job in Keystone City as a profiler, he was eventually paralyzed by Gorilla Grodd. After forming a relationship with Wally West, Hunter begged Flash to go back in time and change his life, but the speedster refused. Hunter took things into his own hands and stole the cosmic treadmill, which exploded, granting Hunter the power to live between the seconds of time and making him Zoom, the second Reverse Flash. Number 5. Superboy Prime. Superboy Prime was initially a normal child on an Earth known as Prime Earth that didn't really have any superheroes. Or they had superheroes in the exact same way that we do, in comic books and entertainment media. This young future supervillain was adopted by Jerry and Naomi Kent, who named him Clark, which was both Naomi's middle name and the fictional comic book character Superman in their world. Well, it turns out that Clark really was Kal-El, teleported to Earth Prime before the Krypton of this universe was destroyed when its sun went kaboom. Discovering his Kryptonian abilities thanks to the passing of Halley's Comet, while coincidentally dressed as Superman at a Halloween party, this Superboy left his Prime Earth reality shortly afterwards. As it happens, the Earth 1 Superman just happened to be passing by and asked him to join other heroes in protecting reality itself from the Anti-Monitor during the Crisis on Infinite Earths. His reward, along with Alexander Luthor Jr. of Earth 3, was a chance to escape to a heavenly pocket dimension where he doesn't age. Unfortunately, being able to watch the post-crisis Earth that was getting darker and darker without being able to be a part of it, losing his childhood, knowing that he could never grow up to be Superman, his idol of Earth 2, and feeling like the heroes of post-crisis Earth were absolute dog water, Superboy Prime became a pretty bitter guy. He escaped with Alexander and instigated the Infinite Crisis, and then he went on to be an incredibly despicable bad guy. Number 4. Doomsday. Doomsday is essentially just pure destruction. He was able to bring down the Justice League and take the life of Earth's premier hero, Superman, in his first appearance. Doomsday doesn't speak, he can't be reasoned with, and the only way to stop him is to beat him harder than he will beat you. That's because Doomsday was created on the planet Krypton as the ultimate life form, tested against that planet's harsh environment and eventually against the Kryptonians themselves. Doomsday's whole life cycle involves it being killed and then coming back stronger than whatever took took it out. Over decades and decades that involved literal thousands of repeated deaths, Doomsday essentially became a nearly undefeatable monster with no other thought process beyond destroying everything in front of him and just moving on to the next thing. All he does is punch things to pieces, and the only way to stop him is to try and punch him to pieces however you can before he can punch you to pieces. Number 3, the Maestro Hulk. Maestro is the dystopian future version of the Hulk, the variant of Hulk that haunts his own dreams. He rules over the creatively named city, Dystopia, as an incredibly evil and immoral dictator. Years and years and years of radiation due to the nuclear conflict that spawned this dystopian future had made Maestro sick and villainous, as well as twice as strong as the base level Hulk, but with all the intelligence of Banner to boot. This bearded green behemoth has been a fan favorite character since his introduction in the Future Imperfect storyline, and his backstory, fighting the Human Torch, Doctor Doom, Namor the Submariner, and Abomination, is pretty intense, and it's a super fun read. Not to mention his debut where he fights the Incredible Hulk and defeats him like it's absolutely nothing to him. Super cool, you should check it out. Number 2, Vulcan. The third and youngest Summers brother, Gabriel Summers, has been used by multiple different parties since his birth. His mother, Catherine Summers, had her life taken by the Shi'ar Emperor D'Ken as a punishment for his father, Christopher Summers' own actions. He was basically paying for his father's crimes, which sucks. The Shi'ar took Gabriel and artificially aged him up and essentially used him back on Earth. So he was robbed of his childhood, which essentially meant that Vulcan has a tendency to act like a huge brat sometimes. It's a big old baby. After being saved and mentored by Moira McTaggart, Vulcan was drafted into an early team of Professor X's X-Men that got almost completely perished at the hands of Krakoa. Professor X then used his powers to wipe everyone's mind of the memory of this team of X-Men, which was incredibly messed up. Unbeknownst to Xavier though, Vulcan absorbed the energies of his teammates and was actually able to survive, spending years in Earth's orbit just kind of inert and floating there until the events of M-Day awoke him. After coming back and fighting the X-Men and Xavier for some understandable vengeance, Gabriel took off into space and essentially took control of the Shi'ar Empire, marrying the black sheep of the Shi'ar royal family and using his massive power to beat the royal guard, take the life of D'Ken, and place himself on the throne. And finally, in at number 1, it's Thanos. Look, I know we all love Thanos as a villain. He's terribly ruthless, massively intelligent, and sickeningly powerful. But my lord, is his origin messed up. Thanos was born on Titan, a moon of Saturn, and is technically an Eternal. Unfortunately though, Thanos was born with a deviant gene, which made him very different looking from the rest of the Titan Eternals, with purple thick hide-like skin and a much larger body. These differences caused Thanos' mom to try and change his life status from alive to lights out, and when that failed, he was ruthlessly bullied as he grew up. As such, Thanos wasn't the happiest child, and he distanced himself from his society, instead investing himself in science, life and death, and he also started dissecting animals all Dahmer-like. Thanos found he has a thing for death. In fact, he met and started to fall in love with the literal physical embodiment of death in Marvel Comics, Mistress Death. To prove his love for her, he would commit some of the worst crimes, starting with the dissection of his mom, the bombardment of his home world, and eventually assembling the Infinity Stones and trying to wield the Cosmic Cube to destroy all life in the universe. But that's all I got. Thanks so much for watching. I've been your host, Adam Andrews, and I'll catch you all on the Flippy Flop on Top 10 Nerd. Peace out.